I never did like the sound of gravel crunching under unfamiliar tires, especially not at my place. There's just something about it sets your teeth on edge even if you're not the paranoid type. And that morning, standing in my kitchen by Lake Street, Mary pouring coffee into a dented old mug, that sound meant only one thing: trouble was about to walk right up my driveway. Now, I'm not one for drama, at least I didn't used to be. Retired, mostly keep to myself, work on the house, maybe fish a little. The house itself is nothing special, just a sturdy old place built before HOAs started popping up like weeds across every county line. It's not fancy, but it's mine, and I like the quiet. Or I did, until the SUVs rolled in. I pulled back the curtain and watched three of them roll up, polished black, every inch corporate. No hazard lights, no phone call ahead, just straight down the drive like they'd done it 100 times. And wouldn't you know, all three had the Millwood Reserve HOA logo stenciled on the side, big as life. That was the first red flag. My property has never been part of any HOA, not for a single day, since it was built in '48. I don't rush to greet folks on my porch. There's something about making the first move that gives the other person the upper hand, so I waited. The tallest man in a crisp polo shirt strode up, first clipboard tucked tight to his chest. He didn't even say good morning, just Milo Davenport, like he was reading my name off a list at the DMV. I told him, "That's me, and this is my land." He smiled, but it was the kind you get from car salesmen right before they hand you a pen. "Sir, we're here on behalf of Millwood Reserve HOA. This property falls within the upcoming expansion zone. We're prepared to offer you full market value plus $7,500 relocation incentive. You have 3 days to consider." Then he stuck the folder out, all official-like. I didn't take it, just leaned forward and let the screen door hiss shut between us. I glanced back at the two others. One was snapping photos of my dock, the other wandering toward my shed like he owned the place. I said, "You boys have about 30 seconds to get off my property. I'm not selling, not now, not ever. And your jurisdiction ends 2 miles south of here. You're trespassing." That smile of his twitched, just for a second. "You really should consider it, Mr. Davenport," he said, still holding the folder, but I shut the door and left him standing there. They didn't leave fast, either. Took their sweet time, strolled back to their vehicles, not a word between them. I watched them the whole way, hands wrapped around my mug just to keep steady. You ever get the feeling you've just kicked a hornet's nest? Because the next morning, taped to my front gate, was a fat envelope with a red embossed stamp, "Legal Notice." Inside, a document 7 pages long with fake municipal seals, a phony map, and a load of bureaucratic nonsense. Something about community development agreements and public recreational access. I didn't even finish reading it. I'd seen scams like this before, back when I worked land investigations for the state. They always follow the same script: confuse you with paperwork, make it look official, hope you'll fold. So I made copies, scanned every page, started a folder on the kitchen table. Then I called an old friend, Reed, down in Augusta. Told him to check the paperwork for fraud. He promised to run it by the registry that day. Sometimes all you can do is circle the wagons and keep your head down. That was the morning I noticed the spray paint. 3 bright yellow X's, one on a boulder near the water, one at the end of my dock, and one on a tree about 30 yards in. Not kids, no way. These were survey marks like you'd use for excavation or boundary lines. Only nobody had my permission to survey anything. That afternoon, the mailbox held another surprise: a tax assessment letter claiming my property's value had jumped 430% due to pending commercial integration. I called the county office, got a confused clerk who'd never heard of such a thing. When I described the gray watermark on the letter, he sighed and said, "You're the 3rd one this month." That's when it really started to sink in. This wasn't just a pushy HOA, this was a shakedown. You might be wondering what I did next. I doubled down on security, new cameras under the dock, motion sensors, lights. That night I stayed up in the living room, lights off, just watching. At 2:40 a.m., headlights crept along the tree line, no plates, tinted windows. 30 minutes later, a figure broke into my boat shack, didn't take anything, just taped a note inside: "You can still sell. It gets harder after this." That old feeling came back, the one I used to get during investigations, cold in the gut, sharp in the brain. I pulled all the footage, ran facial enhancement, traced a license plate that didn't exist, found out 2 of those men weren't even licensed realtors. One had a record for property fraud in New York. The HOA muscle, it turned out, was a small-time crime crew playing dress-up. I called Reed again. This time he promised to dig deeper, cross-reference every name on the documents. While he worked, I drove to the address listed for the expansion fund. Just a co-working space. No real office, no receptionist, just a mailbox and a lease under a shell company. That's when the state environmental guys showed up. Two of them, green uniforms and clipboards, saying there'd been a complaint about chemical runoff from my dock. I led them down to the lake, let them poke around. One found a blue barrel I'd never seen before tucked under some netting. They opened it empty except for a little residue. I asked them to check for recent scratches. They did, and left with the barrel. After they'd gone, I checked the cameras again. Sure enough, 4:37 a.m., someone in a hoodie rolled that barrel into place. Millwood reserve patch on his back, clear as day. You see where this is going? They were planting evidence to get me cited, maybe even evicted. That afternoon, my inbox pinged with a local news story, environmental risk at lakefront home. No byline, just the same blog that ran fluff pieces on Millwood HOA. I started to realize this wasn't just about money, it was about power. So I baited my own trap. With the help of a friend who owed me favors, I forged a leaked memo supposedly showing the HOA planning to sell lakefront property to a Chinese investment group, planted it on a local blog. It took less than a day for the Millwood board to panic. Emails flew, emergency meetings were called, and suddenly their tight little group started to crack. I even had an inside man, a young lawyer named Justin, freshly embedded as a volunteer. He gathered audio of board members discussing how to break me with fake violations, bury me in paperwork, drive me to sell. He sent me lists, my name at the top marked non-compliant, potentially litigious. They planned to target 2 more neighbors next. When they tried to fabricate a shoreline violation, that was it. We compiled everything. Fake forms, threats, audio, the planted barrel whistleblower testimony. Filed a civil suit for harassment, defamation, and real estate fraud. Sent complaints to the county, the state, even the feds. And when they countersued, claiming I was stoking anti-foreign hysteria, my lawyer just grinned and said, "Desperation always files first." The hearing wasn't dramatic, just methodical. Our evidence lined up like dominoes: the fake tax documents, the barrel, Justin's recordings, the shell companies. The judge didn't even wait for closing arguments. She recessed, referred the case for criminal review, and within weeks the story went statewide. State regulators swept through Millwood's last 10 transactions. The FTC opened an inquiry and federal prosecutors brought charges under racketeering statutes. The HOA president resigned. The vice president turned state's evidence. The muscle went to prison for fraud. The whole operation dissolved. Assets seized, damages paid out, close to $1 million split between myself and 2 neighbors. But what mattered wasn't the money, it was the quiet. For the first time in months, nobody pulled into my drive unless I'd invited them. No more threats, no more mail, no more strangers eyeing my dock. I fixed the lock on the boat shack, replaced the cameras with regular old lanterns, and went fishing. My friend Justin got job offers from 3 federal agencies. He took the one with the highest clearance. One last thing before I let it all go. I drove to the county clerk, filed an addendum to my deed. This land not subject to annexation or HOA inclusion ever. The clerk asked if I was planning to sell. I just smiled and said, not a chance. Now, I don't know if you've ever had to fight for your home, but let me tell you, it's not just about standing your ground. It's about knowing when to strike back and how. Sometimes you fight for yourself, sometimes for your neighbors, and sometimes just so the next guy doesn't have to. So let me ask you, where do you draw the line when it comes to your own piece of land? If someone tried to muscle you out, how far would you go to hold your ground? Drop your story down below. I've got time to read, and after all this, I'd say I've earned it.